see this face. That's pretty much my face after I read what's going on, and frankly, I was aware quite a bit about these things, but as a playtester, but I wanted to, I guess I was coping with it, so I did not really want to cover it, but and I was also hoping that Space Apes will, kind of pedal back on this, but they did not, and another fellow playtester, Rivet, also an amazing player from Prime family, really amazing player. So huge shout out to him. He compiled, a list of what's going to happen now. Some of these things they have been shared around playtest. Some were shared in the VIP chats of the Discord. So it's not super public, but people talk about it. So we're getting a game update, and Space Apes were clear that they are working on a balance update which will impact gameplay significantly. And here's what we know, right? Ruination and God Neptune they are getting a nerf, and they will make them same level as Predaking and Volcanicus, which will make it mediocre at best. Yes, they are getting nerfed. Yes, they are making them around Volcanicus and Predaking, and however, mediocre, right? What is mediocre, right? Because currently Predaking and Volcanicus, they are mediocre, but if that's the standard, right? If they if there is nothing better, and there isn't, there won't be pretty much. There's Kyrian and Galvatronus, right? They will probably be the best then. But we will see. It's Space Apes, right? Who knows? Who knows with them anymore? But yeah, I mean, the Okaya, he'll be significantly weaker. You will notice a significant difference in his power, and this is one of the really, really, really bad ideas. So, 100% confirmed, but Leo, we like to have damage reduced significantly. It was too high. Yes, even 4-star was really good. I can understand, this nerf. And honestly, if they cut his damage in half, it would make it even. Actually, not in half. It would have to be a bit less in half than half. And we are not talking about cores. Without cores, maxed out Leo does about 17,000 damage. A little bit plus, right? And maxed out optimal does 10k. So as you can see, the difference is significant. Even Optimal is an absolutely amazing bot. So if they cut his damage down, I think that's perfectly fair. Leo is still gonna be good, Even forced, I think Leo is gonna be really good in that case. But it depends how much do they cut it. And if I see, I say, if with if he's around optimal level of power, without core especially, that would be actually really, really good, But otherwise, I'm not too happy about this nerf either. But I guess it depends how do they implement it now. Beachcomber and Deluge are likely to go and be nerfed. Yeah, they're gonna be absolutely nerfed. The Space Apes were really adamant about it, especially in the VIP chats. And I can understand the reason for this nerf because on Outpost he's an absolute cancer to fight. You really need to set up your team completely. You need to have Prima, you need to have, at least one or two nice sticks and fracas, to constantly apply acid to prevent him from healing. You need Cosmic Crust Blaster to apply more damage from your elements to him, you just get to stack so much damage. You need a survivability, healer constantly healing you, because as your bots deal damage, they're getting reflect, so your gunners are super squishy, you need a bots like a blue streak and Violator to cut down his HP, etc. As you can see, it was so complicated, so much math going on around this. So this nerf I actually agree with, and I think they need to really balance it out a little bit further. I think his ability is fine in regards to support to other bot, right? But I think they need to remove reflect from himself, so he loses reflect from his ability. That would be pretty fair. And also take a look at the G1 core, because I've also made a video on how much damage Beachcomber actually takes, and other bots, including him. So how the damage reduction works, and he takes very little damage, next to negligible amount, and heals an absolute truckload. So maybe they even have to look into balancing his G1 core as well. But this one I actually agree with because it is a cancer to deal with. And they also said that they will look to buff some average 5-star boss to make them more usable with standard health and DPS changes. I'm not too sure about it, Some bots don't need a lot more than this, and not necessarily just 5-star. I think they need buffs across the board, across the rate. It's quite simply, especially in health of DPS, especially some older bots. But ability is pretty much 90% of the bot. The quality of the bot. So this is lazy thing to do. And pretty much everything here is almost everything is a lazy thing to do, especially Ruination and God Neptune nerf. Ultra lazy. They need to scale up other combiners to be more, in line. Because even Ruination and God Neptune can get completely obliterated if you're not careful in a war, and they are extremely relevant for events as well. So yeah, not good. So I'm not so sure about this. We'll see how it happens, but I'm not so sure. And they look to improve some other combiners, like Leo Kaiser and Computron, overloaded the Mega Supreme, so they'll be similar level to Predaking and Volcanicus. Again, that's pretty much, I guess, gonna be the baseline afterwards. I mean, Overload and Omega definitely deserved it, considering that they were the first 5 stars, and they are it's quite costly. Not as costly as Ruination and God Neptune, because it's super cool. They're much more expensive, but still, they should definitely have a little bit of a buff, especially for events. For wars, they're decent, but for events, absolutely. And here's what's going to happen: wars will be harder, absolutely. For some players, wars are absurdly hard, and for very, 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 very small minority, they are easy. I'm talking about the high-end wars. Lower league wars, I mean, like Caminus, in a lot of cases, Ruination can just solo it. Because quite simply, it's mostly because of Titans, actually. It's not so much about Ruination, it's about Titans and, the strategy of how Ruination can damage Titans. And your own Titan, dealing the damage to HQ, etc. Right, there are some strategies to do it. Especially paired with bots like Warped and Skull Smasher who can damage Titans. And that's something, to keep in mind. But otherwise, higher leagues, they're much, much harder, especially with strong outposts like Beach. And event scoring will be harder. Yeah, they will, because, Ruination, God Neptune, they make it so much easier. And it's clear that they're trying this to make us spend a lot more. Basically, they want us to lose more so that we spend more money. This is a terrible idea. People are not stupid. People are gonna see this, and this is not a good way to deal with this, right? And yeah, he felt, that it's important that players prepare themselves for these changes, because here's the deal, right? All these things, this is really good. The good bots, good combiners that people invested heavily into. And now, after a year and a half, 2 years, they are getting nerfs. So after everyone poured, all of their, money, all of their time, whatever, into this content, these characters, now they're gonna nerf it, and they're gonna repeat the cycle. They're gonna use the next overpowered thing, wait for people to invest heavily, and then, repeat the cycle, and that's very unhealthy. Shocker, right? So yeah, I hope that something happens, because this is just really, really bad idea. And they have time to backtrack on this, Beach combo nerf, I agree with, Leo Prime Inferno, sure, I can agree with some balances. Ruination, God Neptune, well, they plan to get rid of water, so you just get, not really get rid of, but, replace it with something. So I think starting with, waiting for that first will be much better idea, and then to check. But otherwise, making it in line with King of Volcanicus is terrible idea, especially for events. To make events much harder. And they should buff some combiners, regardless of the nerfs. Okay, regardless of if they nerf Ruination God Neptune, they should buff other combiners as well. But yeah, and as he recommends to level some core for boss like Minerva and Flatline. Yeah, I do agree with this. Minerva and Flatline, Smokescreen and Breakneck, Aerate and Slipstream, Pipes and Headstrong, Broken Blood, you know, Trex and Cutthroat. Let's see, you know, Blue Streak and Wild Rider, Optimus and Transmetal 2 Megatron. There is quite a hefty number, and you know, the boss that are kind of, I know, in the safe zone, I suppose, but really good. Yeah, I think there are some that you should focus on instead. So yeah, I hope that something happens. You know, that the tapes will realize that this is really not that, you know, the right way to do it, and you know, if they again, if they proceed some of those nerfs, that they don't make it terrible. Because like I said, making Leo Prime in line with Optimal would be pretty reasonable. But otherwise, if they nerf things into the ground, people are gonna be pissed off again, because I think this whole strategy of again releasing overpowered content, letting it, you know, sit for a year and a half for people to spend heavily into it, and then nerfing it down so that they release new OP content and repeat the cycle. I think it's not a very good thing. I think it's not very customer friendly, and they should definitely look for a different approach, because people are unhappy. And you know, don't get me wrong. You know, last video Spaces did some really good things, but you know, just for them to, you know, go a step back right now is not that good. But again, uh, this is still not going to, you know, they're working on it, but you know, the nerfs did not reach playtest yet, for example. So again, I'm hopeful, but that's pretty much, you know, yeah, I pretty much said everything that I wanted to in regards to this topic. So again, I hope the tapes will listen to us again, and you know, yeah, sure, again, some balances are fair, but you know, heavy nerfs, you know, especially to make events harder, a terrible idea. And for Force, you know, they should definitely look into balancing that first, regardless, you know, of Ruination God Neptune. So that's pretty much it for this video, and see you in the next one.